You know exactly what you want to say. You've rehearsed the hard part 10 times in the shower. And then the moment arrives, you sit down across from the person, you open your mouth, and it comes out as a mumbled apology, wrapped around a vague complaint that nobody can actually act on. That breakdown happens because you are relying on nerve when you should be relying on sequence. There is a precise order you can follow that transforms an emotional, messy grievance into a clean 5-line script, one that lets the other person hear the hard truth without flinching and without shutting down. Let's build that sequence right now. Picture this blank document on your screen. I want you to bring to mind a specific person and a conflict you are currently dreading, and we are going to draft exactly what you will say to them. Most people spend their entire careers choosing between cowardly silence and brutal honesty. Having a structured, pre-written framework gives you a third option, a path to a productive resolution. Step 1. Draft the compliment sandwich you instinctively want to use. You know the pattern. Open with fake praise, slip the criticism into the middle, close with another compliment. Get it on the page. Now delete it. Strip away everything except the criticism itself. We cling to the sandwich because it feels kind, but research shows it fails. A study of medical students giving each other clinical feedback found that while the students were convinced the sandwich method helped performance, researchers measured the actual outcomes and found zero evidence that it improved anything. There is a hidden cost to this tactic. When you bury a critique between 2 compliments every single time, people learn the pattern. They start to hear your praise as the wind-up before a punch, and you end up poisoning your genuine compliments. Hiding the message only serves your own anxiety. True clarity requires the raw issue to stand completely alone on the canvas. Step 2. Now that we have the raw critique, we have to stop it from landing like a personal attack. To do that, we use the first 2 parts of a framework called SBI, situation and behavior. We are going to separate observable facts from character judgments. Look at this revision. Your lazy attacks who someone is. Instead, we write exactly what a camera would record. The first part names the situation, the homepage project. The second part names the observable behavior, files landing Thursday instead of Wednesday. Review your sentence and delete any mind reading. You didn't care enough to finish on time is a story you have invented about their motives, and you are almost certainly wrong. Strip it down to the math. Step 3. The letter I in the framework. You have to name the impact. If you stop at describing the behavior, the person is sitting there wondering why this even matters. You must tie their action to a concrete consequence in the very next breath. Notice what happens on the screen here. We cross out, "That was unprofessional," which is just another judgment. Instead, we write down the measurable ripple effect. The developers lost their window, and the sprint slid a day. Situation, behavior, impact. People will instinctively argue against opinions about their character. You invite a debate the second you call someone sloppy. But consequences simply exist. The sprint was delayed. By pointing at an undeniable operational impact, you force the brain out of self-defense mode and into problem-solving mode. Step 4. This is the moment where most managers fail, because they take their perfectly crafted SBI statement and immediately dictate a solution. We need to turn this from a lecture into a dialogue. Add a specific, open-ended question to your document asking for their perspective. Walk me through what's been happening on your end. And then write down a reminder to actually stop talking and listen to the answer. A famous study of hospital nursing teams by researcher Amy Edmondson showed that the most effective teams actually reported the highest number of errors. They didn't make more mistakes than weak teams. They simply felt safe enough to admit them out loud because they knew the response wouldn't be a character attack. When you ask a genuine question, you frequently uncover that the root cause was entirely out of their control. The designer's files were late because the brief they received from the product team was handed to them a day behind schedule. They were absorbing someone else's delay. Scripting a mandatory pause to listen protects you. It acts as a critical fact-finding mechanism, so you don't burn trust over an assumption you fabricated in your head. Step 5. Close on one concrete fix. After you understand what really happened, you need to align on a single, achievable action item so the conversation doesn't evaporate by lunch. On the document, we cross out vague admonitions like, "do better next time." We replace it with a specific process change.
locking the brief earlier and flagging delays the same morning. A massive review of feedback studies by researchers Kluger and Denisi pulled together over 23,000 observations. They found a dangerous pattern. In over a third of cases, giving feedback actually made performance worse. The mechanism of failure was entirely predictable.
When feedback forced a person to focus upward on their ego and their identity, performance dropped. When feedback pointed their attention downward at a specific actionable task, performance improved. By aiming your final fix strictly at the process and the work, you leave the recipient looking at a solvable puzzle. They walk away with a clear next step instead of staring at their own inadequacy. Look at the document we just booked. 5 clean, distinct lines: the situation, the behavior, the impact, the inquiry, and the fix. Compare this clear, forward-pointing script to the anxious, rambling paragraph you were dreading delivering earlier today. Difficult feedback does not crush people because it is honest. It crushes them because it is vague and because it attacks who they are instead of what they did. You now have a sequence that is harder on you to draft, but far gentler and more effective for them to hear. Tell me down in the comments which of these 5 steps you think is the hardest to execute in the moment. If this guide gave you a way to finally say the thing you've been holding back, hit the subscribe button for more step-by-step breakdowns. If you have a coworker agonizing over a meeting, share this video with them. You might save them a week of dread. Thanks for watching.